A South African delegation, including International Relations and Cooperation Minister Ronald Lamola, is in the United States for the United Nations General Assembly to discuss the details of a potential South Africa-US trade deal. SABC News correspondent Sherwin Bryce-Pease is on standby with Lamola, and they will be discussing a wide range of issues, including the United Nations General Assembly, South Africa's ongoing engagements with the US, and the UN Commission's inquiry of the Gaza report. Over to you, Sherwin.
We welcome you to the inner sanctum here at the United Nations headquarters in New York for our annual pre-UN General Assembly discussion with the Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, Ronald Lamola. Minister, it's always good to have you on SABC. Welcome back to New York.
Thank you very much, Sherwin.
So you arrive here from engagements in Los Angeles, which DIRCO has framed as part of a forward-looking economic diplomacy by actively building strategic partnerships. Briefly tell us about your engagements on the west coast of the United States, which I understand included a discussion at the Los Angeles World Affairs Council, and then, of course, your engagements that continued here in New York. What is the strategy behind these discussions?
Thank you very much, Sharon. As you are aware, South Africa has got a number of U.S. companies invested in our country, about 600 of them, including a huge number of U.S. tourists. But we also have got a huge number of South African diaspora in the U.S. doing great things in the creative industry, in California, in Hollywood, doing great work. Some of them have won awards, writers, producers, you name them. So we have had engagements with them on people-to-people, their role also to fly the South African flag in the world, in the U.S., and it was very productive, including the mayor of the Los Angeles City Council, which was also very productive, and as you have said, the Los Angeles World Council, which is a think tank on international relations, and all the engagements were very productive, speaking to the South Africa's interests, national, cultural, people-to-people, but also in terms of foreign direct investment that can be leveraged between South Africa and the people of Los Angeles. So it was indeed a very good engagement, and we look forward to deepen it. As you have said, we also had some here in New York. Also,
so soft power very much part of the strategy here in terms of engaging the United States, right?
Yes, as you're aware, there's a lot of South Africans here doing great things. You name them, doing wine. Some of them big sports companies, including law firms where they negotiate some of the big transactions in the world, including buying of sports teams, strategic minerals, and so forth. So this is a good diaspora that we need to tap into. But also the U.S. is home to the biggest anti-apartheid movement that you know. So that movement is also very key in driving a South African message. So indeed,
so reactivating that machinery that helped South Africa overcome apartheid is essential to the kind of bilateral relationship you seek with the United States. Am I reading that right?
Yes, because our relations with the U.S. Is not only at a federal level, it's also at a sub-continental level, sub-structure level, and also at people-to-people relations. So we need to harness that relationship to continue to deepen the relationship between the two countries and its people.
Let's get into some more specifics. The South African delegation's visit to the UN General Assembly will, of course, be led by President Cyril Ramaphosa, who arrives on Sunday. DTI Minister Parks Tau and Presidential Advisor on Investment Promotion, Dr. Alistair Reuters, currently in Washington, D.C., engaging in substantive trade negotiations. Are you able to give us clarity on where those negotiations stand and what the pathway forward looks like now?
Yes, the negotiations are ongoing, and they are very robust, and we remain hopeful that a positive outcome can be achieved. The line of communication is open, and it is at the relevant level of engagement.
Yeah, I've seen Parks Tau post some videos of his engagements with Jamison Greer, who is the U.S. trade representative. Is this also about reducing that 30% tariff that has now been imposed to South Africa? Is that sort of at the center of what you're doing there?
Yes, it is. It is at the center of what they are engaging on in terms of a framework engagement agreement with the line with the tariffs and all the trade issues. But obviously, even the hot button issues on the political front, geopolitics, are also some of the issues that will be raised, and we will take it from there.
Yeah, this intersection between economy and politics seems to be a strategy of the Trump administration. Let me ask you this. AGOA is, of course, due to expire at the end of this month on the 30th of September. And with that, the duty-free trade benefits to sub-Saharan Africa. What does that mean for the strategic relationship, not just between South Africa and the United States, but between the United States and the sub-Saharan African continent?
Yeah, and that's why it is part of the engagements that are ongoing, so that we know what will be the end product at the end of September. Because as you are aware, the tariffs, they've technically nullified AGOA. So the engagement obviously cannot happen exclusively outside AGOA, although AGOA has to be renewed through Congress.
Right.
But obviously it will always be an issue that is under consideration as you engage with regards to the tariffs. So it is an important platform for sub-Saharan Africa. It's also an important platform for South Africa, because most of the trade happens within AGOA. We are an integral part of the AGOA process as one of the most industrialized part of sub-Saharan Africa. The value chain and everything obviously has to go through a country like South Africa and other countries in the continent. So it remains strategic, its extension, and that is our message. But we are hopeful that the outcomes of these engagements will give clear indication of the way forward.
I will tell you there's no indication that Congress is taking this up anytime soon, so it's probably going to lapse, as I'm sure you've been planning for, at the end of this month. Let me ask you this. I've also seen reports, Minister, that Solidariteit and the constituent body AfriForum have again sent a delegation to the United States, which is apparently going to crisscross the country and engage at both the state and the federal level here in the United States to, quote, advocate for South Africa and the country. How do you view this effort by groups like these in the context of what the government is seeking to achieve in the United States?
It's a distraction. It's just aimed to send a negative message about South Africa to the world, as you have seen in the past 15, 20 years. That has impacted negatively on the relations of the two countries. It is against that background that we continue to engage with the federal government and with the various at the state level and also at the local government level, people to people, so that we continue to send the correct, right message of South Africa as the true representatives of the South African people, mandated by South Africans.
You will have seen, Minister, Louisiana Senator John Kennedy has introduced legislation in the United States Senate called the U.S.-South Africa Bilateral Relations Review Act, which would require a full review of America's relationship with South Africa. This is, of course, in addition to the legislation that was passed to the House Foreign Affairs Committee in the House of Representatives. I believe it was in July, authored by Texas Representative Ronnie Jackson. What's your department's engagement looking like with members of Congress in terms of this legislation? Are you concerned that it might actually become law?
Yeah, we really don't know whether it will become law or not. You are aware of the history in the past that such legislations never really became law or never moved that far. But we remain seized with the matter, monitoring, looking at it. Hence, we continuously engage with the members of Congress in a bipartisan way. And some of them have visited South Africa on a number of occasions to be engaged. And we also engage with them when we are in the U.S. and also our mission continue to engage with the members of Congress so that the relationship between the U.S. and South Africa, which is mutually beneficial, is continually portrayed in that way, positive way. It's a mutually beneficial relationship. And most of the issues raised in that bill are really true, ineffectual. There is a distortion of the reality and the clear South African foreign policy. So those are issues that our mission and every South African government rep, and obviously some of the sectors in our society outside government continuously clarify that this is a distortion and this is where South Africa is looking into.
Worst case scenario, despite these distortions that you talk about, this becomes law. Is South Africa got a strategy in terms of how they might respond, right? I mean, some of the implications of this becoming, these bills becoming law is that certain individuals in South Africa, certain individuals within the government and the ruling party could be sanctioned by the United States. Is there a strategy to counter the worst case scenario here?
Yeah, as you are aware, from the onset, we have said that we need to plan for the worst case scenario overall with regards to the tariffs, with regards to anything that may end up coming out of the US, because the situation is unpredictable. You will really never know when things can end up being law or not, and so forth, because of the current nature of the environment. As
of the beast.
As I've said earlier on, that in the past, these type of bills never really seen the light of the day, but you'll never know. But we are prepared for any worst case scenario, and that's why the TIC and government continuously engage with all stakeholders in South Africa, including the private sector, in terms of diversification, but also in terms of what should be our private sector and government be looking into in case some of this becomes a reality.
Minister, you have been consistent for some months now in saying that the determination of the next South African ambassador to Washington was at an advanced stage. How advanced are we today? But more to the point, who is this mystery individual?
No, it remains at an advanced stage, and soon it will be announced in terms of who should be the ambassador. But as you have already said, it does not detract on the work that is already on the ground happening with regards to the reset of the bilateral relations.
Do you know who this person is?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so there is a person that's been identified. That already is news. Let me ask you this. What are the competencies, since you can't give me a name, what are the competencies that the next South African ambassador to Washington should have, given the tense relationship that exists between Pretoria and Washington today?
The person should be a fit and proper person who must enable the good relations be a bridge between the two countries to strengthen the bilateral relations, deepen also people-to-people relations between the two countries. And we are looking forward to the person helping us with that process. The
person, is it a man or a woman?
No, I can't discuss anything.
We got really close, folks. We got really close. Minister, let's talk a little bit about your multilateral engagement. That was bilateral. Let's talk multilateral here at the United Nations. I want to talk also about the news overnight out of the UN Security Council, where the United States, for the 6th time, vetoed a resolution in relation to ending the war in Gaza, this time blocking a resolution demanding not only a permanent ceasefire, not only the release of the unconditional release of the hostages, but also unfettered humanitarian access into Gaza. 14 members backed the measure the United States vetoed. What is your reaction to the US veto?
Yeah, this remains unfortunate, because if this type of a resolution was adopted a year ago, we will not be sitting with the UN report with regards to confirmation of a genocide, lack of access to humanitarian aid, and all the humanitarian measures that are needed to alleviate the current situation. There's a clear conclusion that this is famine, the health sector is collapsing. So it is an unfortunate situation, but it also points to the reality that South Africa has always pointed, the need for the reform of the Security Council, because it should not be practically possible for one country to block what we have already said. 14 countries are already in agreement that there's a need for the humanitarian access. All countries agree, including the US, with regards to the release of hostages. We also agree. So it is indeed a very unfortunate situation.
The US representative in the council yesterday spoke to Navi Pilay's independent UN Commission report and said the following, that they considered it a slanderous report that presented lies and distortions. She said that this is a clear opposition. This is a clear opposition to the position that South Africa has put forward, particularly in your efforts at the International Court of Justice. How does that difference in opinion or different in position in terms of the Gaza issue impact the broader relationship between our two countries?
Yeah, we have maintained that facts and evidence must be refuted with facts and evidence. So if the rep has got facts and evidence, they had an opportunity to provide it to the commission that was chaired by Navi Pillay to refute that facts and evidence. It's similar with the ICJ case of South Africa in the court, where we have presented our side of the story, facts, forensic detail, and the court is open to anyone who wants to oppose and provide the facts and and the evidence. And the statement at the Security Council cannot dispute
Right.
a well-reasoned, forensic, detailed, with all the evidence that was provided. It's irrefutable.
Did you feel vindicated by that report?
Yes, it is. It is a vindication because it provides with clear evidence. It's irrefutable. I mean, the realities of Gaza, not only with this factual report, with the forensic evidence that was presented, but anyone sitting at home watching the news, they see it in real time. It's happening on their television, but also not only on their television, on social media, on various platforms. There's video evidence that society can see on their own in real time. So it's no longer like in the past where you would hear about genocide and you wait for certain. This is happening in real time. You
can turn on the TV.
Yes, and anyone can see it, and that is what the report details. It details forensically. It provides dates, names, the statements. It provides where they come from, the IDF leadership, the Israel leadership. It's a detailed report with the specifics. So anyone who wants to refute it must provide the same specifics to the relevant structures.
Let me ask you about this two-state solution conference that happens before the general debate on Monday next week. Of course, a number of countries, Western countries, France, Canada, the UK possibly, many others have indicated that they will be formally recognizing the Palestinian state. Of course, South Africa has done this many years ago. How important a moment does that two-state solution conference present to the world?
It is a seismic shift. It's an important moment that signifies a shift with regards to the Palestinian question. And it is very key because it takes forward various UN resolutions on the two-state solution. The fact that those countries you have mentioned, France, UK, Canada, and many other countries are now saying, indeed, this two-state solution is the way to go. It does send a message that the impunity of the state of Israel cannot continue because the two countries can coexist side by side. But the reality that is now on the ground with almost everything being annihilated, the Palestinian population, the destruction of civilian infrastructure,
right.
There is, you can see experts are beginning to say, with this is a two-state solution really still possible? Because who will be there in Palestine by the time the world concludes on this matter? So there is a need for agency, and that's why the next forum becomes very important. And we hope that it can then take it further through the General Assembly.
Minister, in the context of Gaza, we cannot not talk about the hostages and the role of Hamas here. Of course, it's important that the hostages also be released. How do you see Hamas's future in a two-state solution context?
Yeah, we as South Africa have been very clear from the 7th of October, clearly that we condemn the actions of Hamas. We do advocate for the release of the hostages, and this was also communicated to the ICJ, to the court, and in the various platforms that South Africa has engaged in, including the UN General Assembly by our heads of state, including myself when I participated in the two-state solution conference, including my predecessor. She has been very outspoken.
Is there a future for Hamas in a future Palestinian state?
I mean, the future you'll have to contextualize it in the context of their own constitution. What Palestinians will want, who can vote, who can participate in the whole process of democratizing the nation.
So a lot of Western countries saying there's no future for Hamas in this future context.
It should be left to the Palestinian people to decide in terms of their constitution. And if there is any wrongdoing that Hamas has done within this context, they must be held accountable. And as I've said, we also supported the process that the ICC has taken with regards to the leaders of Hamas that they want to hold accountable. But in terms of participation in a democratic process and so forth, it must be the people of Palestine that decide how and who are the people that are eligible to be participating, whether political parties or whatever structure.
Final question for you, Minister. Of course, on the G20, there will be a ministerial meeting on the margins of UNGA, the UNGA, next week. You have, of course, welcomed the announcement from the United States that they'll be sending J.D. Vance, the Vice President, to South Africa for the Leaders' Summit in November in President Trump's stead. Do you view President Trump's non-attendance as a settled matter? And what might we expect from that ministerial next week?
Yes, we view it as a settled matter. Any country can decide who to delegate to the G20. Not only the US, any member state of the G20 can decide who they want to send, whether it's a president, a vice president, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, or any other rep of that country. And so we welcome this. We see it as settled. And with regards to the meeting, is to consolidate the agenda, to seek consensus, to take the matters forward with regards to the preparation for the leaders' declaration in South Africa.
But you know there'll be no consensus, right?
No, no one knows.
Well, the United States is going to be there, and Argentina is going to be there, and history teaches us that they sometimes don't agree on multilateral declarations.
Yeah, and they sometimes agree. In Brazil, we ended up with a declaration. Obviously, there was some statement from Argentina. It's part of international diplomacy. If there is some kind of disagreements, there is a way that we are going to negotiate, and that's why the meeting becomes important, and the negotiations happens up until the last minute of the declaration. So there is still a possibility of emerging with a consensus, with a declaration. But if it doesn't happen, it's not the end of the world. It's the nature of the beast that will end up with a chess summary that will take the matters forward for the people of the world.
Ronald Lamola, Minister of International Relations and Cooperation of South Africa. Always good to see you. Thank you very much, sir. Good luck next week.
Thank you, Sherwin.
Such a pleasure talking to you. There you go, Mbali, the Chief Diplomat of the Republic of South Africa, live here on SABC News from UN headquarters as we preview a very, very busy time in New York next week.
Certainly, Sherwin, thank you so much for that update. That's SABC News' US correspondent, Sherwin Bryce-Pease, in conversation with the Minister of International Relations, Ronald Lamola.